Man of Maranatha, Detroit, Michigan, where everything depends upon a proper understanding of Genesis 3:15, where the Most High God said to the serpent, I will put enmity between you and the woman. Her seed's heel will bruise your seed's skull. Sometimes in trying to understand the Word of God, it might be a little bit difficult for us humans. Even though we were meant to personify the image of God and understand His Word, maybe it is our flesh that is a barrier, or our minds or our experiences that are in opposition to God, so that we don't want to understand Him. Some things that He says are so clear. I just wonder why so many parables. Why does the Most High God hide the things for kings to search out? It's like, even with the Hebrew language being an agro-biolinguistic language, He's using metaphors of agriculture to explain something. Even the seeds. Seeds are deep, buried deep, or at least they're buried under the dirt. And you really don't know what it is until it bears its fruit. It may grow up as a tender vine, become a tender tree, have branches. But then when it matures, you will see the fruit and the fruit that it bears. And the best fruit is Christ. Christ was that seed of the woman. And the allegory, the metaphor, the analogy here is that the children of Adam were as trees to be planted in the earth. And no matter what type of calamity comes upon the earth that may wipe away the weeds, uproot the weeds, because those people, trees, were never supposed to be here. Now, some people may go on to express that they are aliens, they come here from another planet, but it's really the individual. If you wish to remain here on earth, because earth is a great and marvelous place to be, all you have to do is humble yourself and follow the decrees of the Most High God, His 10 Commandments. But what people tend to, they have become more fixated on the scriptures. They have become more fixated on interpreting the word and being a teacher. There's only one teacher, and that is Christ. He's the greatest teacher. But He was anointed to be that teacher because of what the Most High said to the serpent. See, the woman was wisdom, which is God's wife, Proverbs 8. The maid of the Lord, Isaiah 34:16. Shekinah glory. She tabernacled within the mind, upon the flesh of the Messiah. But what's even more interesting is that the Messiah had to cultivate His mind, His body. See, Him being a full man, the seed of Joseph, the seed of David, the seed of Abraham, the seed of Adam, by Him having that genetic connection, He had to cultivate within Himself to obey God's word. Now, He was predestined, He was anointed to do it, but what people fail to see, I guess most Christian minds fail to, they deliberate and they bring up these fanciful philosophies to explain, His free will and His divinity, as He's half man, half God, hypostatic union. The reality to make it simple, is that he was a man who was predestined to do a certain thing. If God called him to do a certain thing, his word doesn't come back void. He's still a man. Even though he might have done a great thing, he's still a man. But in him being a man, I guess the issue will come up is, did he have original sin upon him? And, that's a very good question. And I would have to say, there are certain people who are destined for vocations that no, original sin, the stain of original sin had to be upon Christ because Christ died. Even though he was killed, he died. And when you die, that is the punishment of disobedience. God told Adam and Eve, if you eat of the tree of the fruit of knowledge, you will die. In that day, you will die. Now, Christ did not partake of the fruit. He didn't taste the vinegar, the wine, when he was on the cross. But in his obedience unto death, God now must judge, was his life, was it supposed to be extinguished? Because sometimes God, there's a time to kill, there's a time to destroy, there's a time for peace. So if he tells, according to the scriptures, if he tells you to go in and kill and wipe out, well, he didn't say kill. If you go in and wipe out or get rid of a particular people, every man, woman, child, animal, and beast, and just push them off the land, you must do it. And Christ, I feel, because what he tells his listeners about John, he says, there's no one more righteous from the womb than John. Now, did John have this concept of original sin upon him? I would say, yeah, he had to. The original, if we will give validity to this element of original sin, all original sin is the act of adultery. If you were born through, say your parents had one of your parents had an adulterous act. He or she stepped out of the marriage. And when they came back to the marriage and they didn't tell the other partner, in the eyes of God, they had committed adultery. So here it is, Adam has sex with the serpent. Now, the serpent isn't a reptilian, the serpent isn't an angel, the serpent was just a Gentile woman, a beast of the field. See, when it says that Noah took all of the beasts, all of the animals, it necessarily wasn't all of the kosher animals to be eaten. There were people. These people were to be fruitful and multiply after the flood. They were the strangers. But the story of salvation, what was told to the serpent, is coming through Noah, because Noah is a descendant of Adam. However, if Adam has relations with the serpent first, a woman, a Gentile woman, because you remember, before he was given Eve, he was going around looking for a wife. And then he had to come to the Most High and ask the Most High, I need a wife. Most High puts him to sleep, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. Now you have a helpmate, someone you can procreate with. But that other woman, the people who were created in Genesis 1, were still around. And she came back because she wanted to have a child. She wanted to have an heir. She knew something was special about Adam. So when Adam has relations with the serpent, he has violated a covenantal understanding of when a man and a woman get together, they become one. Because when you compare Genesis 3 to Leviticus 5 of the accusation of an adulterous woman or an adulterous wife, she drinks a potion and her thigh rots off, and on her belly she eats dust. Now, there is some more details to the story, because some people look at Genesis 3 as a form of abortion for the serpent. But that didn't happen because there's some details to the story. But the issue is, if the serpent is a Gentile woman and Adam has relations with the Gentile woman, he goes back to his wife, is somewhat of a state of adultery. Now I guess you can say for Israelite men they can have more than one wife, but he wasn't supposed to have relations with anyone other than Eve, because it was bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. He was created to fulfill a particular purpose, but what he had done is stepped outside of it wasn't his time to have had relations. He got drunk. Noah got drunk. So the wording of original sin is that if your father, in this example, if your father had relations with another woman and he was betrothed to your mother, there's something wrong with that. Now, I'm not saying original sin in the concept of Christian theology, but there's an issue going on with that, because God has consecrated Eve for Adam. Now, because my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Adam had done this act, all of his genealogy is under this state of original sin, which is not, I'm not supporting in its totality of the Christian understanding of original sin. Adam had done something wrong. It's like the wages of sin is death. However, John says there are sins that don't lead to death. Now, yes, God said that you eat of this fruit and that day you will die, and Adam ends up living 900 and some odd years, and 1,000 years is as a day unto the Lord. So yeah, he did die within that day, but there's something more in particular that needs to be addressed. Was this a sin not unto death? Because Adam was going around looking for another wife before Eve was created. But getting back to this concept of original sin is just a marker to state that this particular person done something out of the mindset of the Most High God. Did something out of his authority. It was just something Adam wasn't supposed to do. So now all of his descendants are marked with this stain of what our father had done. So when God is reinstituting or redeveloping this new covenant, he develops the covenant with Abraham, and he's now saying, yeah, it's still about the bloodline. It's still about a seed. It's still about a child because of what I said in Genesis 3. But now I'm going to put this requirement, this other marker of faith. See, if you have faith, then in spite of what Adam had done, I will work with you. Because by you having faith, I can more or less deal with you and mold you to the way that I would like to mold you. It is not your will to be done. It will be my will. I will do what I want to do with you if you would submit and have faith. Now, if you have that type of faith, then God will be able to use you in spite of the stain of original sin upon you. If you don't use faith, then you will put yourself under the law. And all of us have fallen short of the glory of God 7 times 70 in a day. So you need something to redeem you back into the graces, the good graces of God, and into having a proper relationship with God. This is where the Messiah comes in. However, God has preordained certain people to fulfill a purpose of teaching, of setting an example that those after them should follow and listen and study. But because you're studying, it doesn't mean that you are a particular teacher. I am a teacher. No, we are all studying to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. We are trying to get into this state of heaven, this atonement, this oneness with God and the relationship with God. And what we must do is we need to eliminate the issues that are in our bodies. We need to eliminate the sins, the defects, the character flaws that are not appealing to God. And one story that I find interesting is that being a servant of God, it's a very not only are we servants, we're sons, we're heirs. If we're children of God, we should be reflecting His image. And if God is light, we should be reflecting light, not colors. Colors is just a different spectrum of light. If we truly want to reflect light, we need to reflect what God and what God has said, and only what God has said. We can't add or we can't take away from what God has said. When we do that, we're reflecting, we're lucifers, we bring about a different understanding to what has been said. We are antichrist when we go against what God has said. Like Peter was a Satan. He was an adversary. When you're going against what God has said, you might be on the same page, but it's not what he said. It's just like Moses. Moses didn't make it into the promised land. You know why? Do you want to make it into the promised land? Well, what do you have to give up? Sell all you have, because the things that you have won't make it into the promised land. The things that you possess and the things that you own are only artifacts to show your success here on earth in the flesh. If you are of the Spirit, then you should be magnifying things of the Spirit, things of light, pure consciousness, pure ways of the Most High God. And it is difficult for a lot of people to hear and understand, whether it's astrological, ethical, moral, esoteric, Kabbalistic. It's different ways to look at the light and explain what you see from your understanding. But the most dynamic thing here is you can't be speakers of the word. You have to be doers of the word. You can't be hearers of the word. You have to be doers of the word. You have to actually do. And that is what Christ had done. That's what David did. David fought the mighty giant Goliath, cut off his head, took it to Jerusalem, and he buried it. 1,000 years later, Yeshua was born. 33 years later, Freemasonically, Yeshua was crucified on a hill called the Place of the Skull. It was Goliath's skull. Goliath was the seed of that Gentile woman, the serpent, Lilith, in Genesis 3. I am the man of Marionette of Detroit, Michigan.